Good day, everyone. I am Angel Faith Latoza from BSc 3A, and today I will talk about the performance task number 2 in ECE 37. So, based on the first performance task we conducted the benchmark on each of our computers, and the result have shown that I am using the Intel Core i5-11400F. And in this task number 2, I will compare it to the almost same processor on the other brand, which is the AMD Ryzen 5 Pro 4650G. So this is the Intel Core i5-11400F, and this is the Ryzen 5 Pro 4650. So we will compare these two processors in terms of specifications, game performance, and cost comparison. So first, in their general overview and comparison of the processors, we have the Intel Core i5 in color blue and AMD Ryzen 5 Pro 4650G on the orange. So in terms of single core performance, Core i5 is 84 while Ryzen 5 is 72. And in terms of performance, Core i5 gains 46 while Ryzen 5 Pro is 42. In terms of power efficiency, Core i5 has 62 while Ryzen 5 Pro 4650G is 68. So in this general overview, their average is Core i5 gains 66 while Ryzen 5 Pro is 63. So they are almost the same actually. So when it comes to Cinebench R23 in single core performance, Intel Core i5 has 1333 while Ryzen 5 Pro has 1249. When it comes to multi-core, Core i5 has 10,216 while Ryzen 5 has 9,246. When it comes to Passmark CPU single core, the Core i5 has 3,032 and Ryzen 5 Pro with 2,640. And in a multi-core, Core i5 has 17,380 and Ryzen 5 has 16,322. On the Geekbench 5 in single core, Core i5 has 1,524 and Ryzen 5 has 1,196. And in a multi-core Geekbench 5, Core i5 has 7,404 and Ryzen 5 Pro has 6,524. So when it comes to price comparison, Intel Core i5, I am using this one and it costs 8,736. I bought it in that price, while AMD Ryzen 5 Pro costs 12,795. That's why Intel Core i5 is way cheaper than the AMD Ryzen 5 Pro. But their specs. First, we have to check their specs. In general, in this table, we have the Intel and the AMD model number i5-11400F, while AMD is Ryzen 5 Pro 4650G. So the Intel was released later than the releasing of the Ryzen 5, which was July 21, 2020. Then on the next year, the i5 was released. They are both desktop type, and the code name of the Intel i5 is Rocket Lake, while the Ryzen 5 is Zen 2. Socket with LGA 1.2 in Intel and AM4 in AMD. They are both 64 bits in the instruction set. And the difference is the Ryzen 5 Pro has an integrated GPU while the Intel or the i5, which I'm using, doesn't have. So the integrated GPU of the AMD is Ryzen Vega 7. Next, when it comes to performance, both are 6 cores, 12 threads, and the Intel with 2.6 GHz and AMD with 3.7 GHz. Turbo boost frequency, Intel has 4.4 GHz and AMD has 4.2 GHz. They have both 100 MHz bus frequency in the multiplier. Intel has 26 and AMD has 37. So bus width 8 GT, while the AMD has no record, and L1 cache 64K per core, while AMD has 96K per core. L2 cache 512K per core, both of them are 512K per core. And Delta cache, Intel has 12 MB per core, while AMD has 8 MB per core. So when it comes to power, AMD has 4.9 billions. And when it comes to fabrication process, Intel is 14 nanometer and AMD is 7 nanometer. So when it comes to TDP, Intel has 65 watts while AMD has a range of 45 to 65 watts. So the maximum temperature for Intel is 100 degrees Celsius, while the AMD has a maximum temperature of 95 degrees Celsius. So, because we know that Intel, the Core i5, doesn't have the iGPU or the integrated graphics processing unit. So the integrated graphics of the AMD is the Radeon Vega 7 with a GPU base clock 300 MHz and GPU boost clock 1900 MHz, shading units of 448, TMUS with 28, OPS with 7, and TGP that ranges from 10 to 45 watts. So when it comes to memory support, the memory type of the Intel is, they're both DDR4 3200, but Intel has a 128 gig while AMD has 63 gig. Both have two maximum memory channels, and the maximum memory version of the Intel is 50 GB per second, while AMD is 42.71 GB per second, and only the AMD has the ECC support. So as we know that Intel is cheaper, yet it has a bigger memory size than the AMD. Miscellaneous, the official site is the Intel Core i5 11400F, and the other one is the AMD Ryzen Pro 4650G. The PCI expression version is 4, while the AMD is having the version 3. The PCI Express lanes for Intel is 20, while the AMD has the express lanes of 12. So when it comes to gaming performance, when it comes to GTA V, they are almost the same, but Core i5 is higher. Still higher, but a little bit better. The same with the Valorant, they are almost the same. But still, Core i5 is higher than the Ryzen 5. The same with the Call of Duty, the Warzone. So, those are the comparisons of the Intel Core i5 11400 and the Ryzen 5 Pro 4650. So, the advantages of the Intel Core i5 it supports up to 128 gig DDR4 3200 RAM, newer because it was released 7 months later, and it has 4 MB larger L3 cache size, newer PCI Express version, which is 27% faster in a single core Geekbench version 5 test. Around 6.29 megabytes per second, or 14% higher theoretical memory bandwidth, and 5% higher turbo boost frequency, which is 4.4 GHz in the Intel, while on the Ryzen 5 it has 4.3 GHz. While on the other hand, the advantages of AMD Ryzen 5 Pro 4650G is it is more modern manufacturing process because it is a 7 nanometers versus 14 nanometers. So the lesser, the better. And the other advantage of AMD Ryzen 5 Pro 4650G is it includes an integrated GPU Ryzen Vega 7, which the Intel do not have. As an engineering student and we are about to use the AutoCAD software, we will render an electrical design soon. So it is a better choice for me to use the Intel Core i5 because it is cheaper. Both processors are almost the same. They can give you the needs as a student in engineering. That's why, aside from being cheaper, it has a bigger memory than the AMD, and it's really affordable than the AMD Ryzen 5 Pro 4650G. So that's all. I hope I have given you the comparison clearly, and you weighed which is way better to use. Thank you. So these are the references I've used in this report. Thank you.